So welcome back to drawing, and these are drawing techniques. And I just want to say a little bit about last week. Last week, I gave you the human body, and the human body can be a tricky one. And I just wanted to, and you say, okay, this is a basic class, and it maybe felt like a little bit over basic last week. But every time you put pencil to paper and you explore proportions and you explore lines and contours, even if it feels overwhelming, every time you do that, you get better at it. So I just want to encourage you, even if you feel like some of these things are just a little bit tough, to just keep trying. And to remember your basic shapes, remember your lines, remember your proportions, and just keep practicing. So today I did get a request, and I put this out there a couple weeks ago, that when we did the face, the typical face that we did, we measured off, and I made everybody do one of these, but I didn't talk to you about a child's face. And I do know that a lot of us out there would like to draw a child, maybe our own child, maybe a grandchild. And just children have this way about them. They have really fun expressions. They have really large eyes. And so I thought maybe today at the beginning of this class, even though we're going to work on our hands and some of the contour and proportions of our hands, I thought it would be fun to just do just a simple demonstration on a child's face, and then you can explore that as well when you keep practicing your drawing. So all you need with you today, again, like we have most every day when we do this, is just the basics. And I have a couple of erasers here. I have my pencils. I have a sharpener just in case I need it. This is a kneaded eraser. It doesn't leave all those gunky shavings. So this is kind of fun to have. Now that Michael's is back open again, you can actually get a drawing kit for under $7, I think. And it has a bunch of these. It has this, it has one of these, and it has a kneaded eraser in it. And it even has a few of these in it. So look for a kit like that if you want to keep exploring some of your drawing techniques. And I encourage you to do that. So I'm just going to I'm not going to do it too quick. We have plenty of time today to go over this and also our hand. So just grab a piece of paper, and hopefully you're keeping all of these things that we've been working on together. You can put it in a folder or a booklet or something so that you can refer to them often. I think that that's what always helps me, is when I start to draw, I just look back and say, okay, now what are my proportions? What is it that I'm trying to, where do the eyes go? And so I want you to practice that. So grab out another piece of paper, and right here at the top, I'm just going to put child face. And I'm going to draw a simple circle, okay? Now you say simple circle, well, circles are hard to do. Remember that if you're doing this with your wrist, that this is a lot harder to control, okay? If you have with you somewhere a can or a bowl, that works too. It does not have to be perfect. I'm going to use my entire hand, and I'm going to use my shoulder, and I'm going to just draw a circle. Again, not perfect, just something of a circle, right? And I'm going to divide that circle in half. And I'm going to divide it again in half. Notice how I just switched my paper. Sometimes it's easier to pull a line down toward you than maybe do sideways. It's up to you, just whatever feels comfortable. So now you have a pizza pie, and the pizza pie is divided into 4, right? And this is where we start adding a couple more lines. So this bottom half of this circle is going to be where all the action happens in a child's face. So I'm going to divide this area in half. And I'm going to divide this area in half. And I'm going to divide this area in half. Notice it's not exactly perfect. What I'm going for here is a template. A template that will help me as I look at a picture of somebody, a child, and try to draw it, okay? So you should have 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines on the bottom half of this circle. And the first thing that I draw is going to be an eyebrow. And if you'll notice, little children don't have thick eyebrows. They really haven't grown in quite yet, right? You can see the startings of them, but I always put in the eyebrow so I know where the eyes are gonna go. And then right under that eyebrow on this second line, so if you wanted to, you could come in and put 1, 2, just so you know where everything's at. You can label your lines. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do another I'm going to make sure that the distance here is about the width of their eye here. Like if I need to measure that, I can. And I'm not going to come too much below that line. And then following the eyebrow down, I'm going to put some little marks here. And the third line is where the bottom of the nose goes. Now these lines aren't the edges of the nose, they're just to kind of give us like where the edges, the bottom of the nose would be. So you could obviously come up here and do like that to make it a smaller nose. These are just guidelines, right? We're just trying to get the proportions correct. And then this fourth line, you're going to come a little bit above that fourth line, and that's where we're going to start our lip. And the bottom of the lip is going to hit that fourth line. And we're going to come down from the middle of the eye, and that's kind of where our lip's going to go. Their lips are a little smaller, obviously. And then when you get your proportions right, this is when you would look at the picture of the face. Now this of course looks like a crazy doll or something like that, but this is where you would take a look at the side of the face and see, okay, maybe they have some cute chubby cheeks. And it comes right in here. Maybe they have this really cute little chin. And it's all going to be observational drawing. So once you have the basic, and you can do this with whenever you're doing a picture of a child, you can always go in and you can measure these out and put in some lines, but you're always going to then take these proportions and you're going to, of course, look at where their eyebrows are. And you're going to see the size of their eye or the shape of their eye. Also, you're going to notice the shape of their nose. And then all of these guidelines will disappear, right? All these guidelines would go away. Don't erase yours now. You're going to need them for this template. But when you're drawing a child's face, this is what you do. You start with a circle. You get your proportions right. You figure out where the eyes might be, the nose and the mouth. And then you start looking at your picture, and that's when you start looking and noticing what the shape of their head is and their little chin and where their cheeks might be and where what shape is their eye. And if they have these beautiful long eyelashes, right? That's when you get to go and you do your observational drawing. And then let's talk about the ears for just a moment. So the ears are going to be between 2 and 3 here. So they're going to come right in here, 2 and 3 little ears. They still have cute little ears. And it'll start just above, just between the eyebrow, if you notice, and the eye. And they'll come down and have a cute little ear. Notice how big these eyes are. I think I mentioned this before, but the child's eye, they don't grow anymore. They're given the eye that they're going to always have. So the hole around it will all obviously get bigger as their head grows. And so that's why they have such beautiful eyes. And then, of course, I think we've talked about this. Give the hair a shape before you give it details, right? And if this is a little cute curly lock kid, you know, you can even just go in and give that. Or maybe they're bald and have just a little on the top of their head, and that's perfect too. So, and that of course comes all down to observational drawing, but I did want to give you that. So now you have a child face template and you have an adult face template. And I want you to just tuck this in with your art drawing stuff so that when you practice, and practice of course makes perfect, if you keep practicing, you can use some of these proportions and techniques. Does anybody have any questions on that child face? I hope I went slow enough for you. And I wasn't going to make this perfect, but I just wanted to get your proportions right. Okay, so now we're going to put that off to the side, and before we get started on the hand, I just wanted to again go over a couple of the ideas from this whole lesson all along. The basic techniques of drawing 101. And I think they're relevant for somebody like me who's been drawing for over 20 years to somebody who's been drawing for 20 days or for 20 minutes. The things that we learn here, you can build on but I always start with these, even myself, I always start with these, okay? So I just wanted to make sure everybody's holding their pencil correctly. Not too tight, not forced, very nice and loose. And these are good to remember every time, and that's why I keep going over them. Also, your lines are very important. Your lines tell the story. So are they harsh lines? Are they cartoon lines? Cartoon lines are when we outline something and we leave that outline there, right? And so now it becomes a cartoon, and we can create an edge by using our shading. So I'm going to take a picture, take a thing here, and I'm going to just draw a box nice and loose. I'm using my shoulder, right? I find the line I want. I'm drawing lightly. Okay. And if I make this a cartoon box, then I'm going to go nice and harsh on that edge. But if I want to make it a beautiful edge piece that shows that it's a, I just switch my pencil around a little bit. I can come in here, and that line can disappear. And when that line disappears, I have an edge, and it becomes more realistic. Okay, so that's something I want you to remember when we do this. Always, always sketch lightly. And I really just can't emphasize that enough. I just can't even emphasize that enough. So get used to that. Get used to just being soft with your pencil. If you happen to get yourself a box of these pencils, if it has an H on it, that means it's a hard lead, and it's a tool to help you draw lighter. Because it's a harder lead, it's not going to be as dark on the paper. So if you really have a heavy hand and you tend to go dark, get yourself a couple of pencils that say H on them, hard pencils, and that is a really good tool to help you have softer lines that erase easier, so that you can put in your organizational lines. So we're going to talk about these organizational lines today. They give and sometimes people call them, and you can call them as well, contour lines, right? I love the idea of these organizational lines because what they do is they give a direction. They also give volume. And they tell the story, right? And whenever we're drawing, that's really what we're doing, is we're telling a story about an object, okay? Very visual. So if you can remember these organizational lines or these contour lines, and that they tell us a story, and that they happen to be in one direction. So watch what happens here when I take this box, and then I'm going to draw another little box right here inside of it. And it doesn't matter. It could be down here. It could be up here. I'll just draw that little box in there. And I want you to try this. I mean, you can write these notes and make sure you know what you're doing, right? And I'm going to take this corner and this corner to that corner and this corner to that corner and so forth. Right? Now what does it look like? Does it tell a story? A little bit. Maybe this is a room and all my lines are getting closer and closer and closer and closer together. Right? And I'm walking down a hallway. It's a tunnel, right? And all of a sudden, all these organizational lines that I put in here tells a story. Okay? And then I can have fun with it. I can make this really look like a tunnel at the end, right? So that's one fun thing about these contour and organization. And so we're going to explore this today using our hand. Okay, and the nice thing about this project that we're going to do today is everybody has two hands, right? And maybe you're a lefty, and so you can practice drawing your right hand. If you're a righty, you can practice drawing your left hand. And we're going to start really simple. How many ever did this before, right? Where you just take everyone's done this. You're sitting in church, you're trying to occupy a 3-year-old, you have them put their hand down on a piece of paper and you trace it for them. Voila. Right? Grade school, everybody put your hand down and you cut it out and you put a picture of you in it or something fun. But what we're going to do right now is we're just going to take a look at this in terms of, let's make some organizational lines. Let's make some contour lines. So we have lines on our hands. I mean, if you look at them, some of us have more lines than others. Okay. I see a line right here, right? So that's my wrist line. It's where I bend my wrist. I see lines right here, right where my thumb can move in and out. See it, how it looks like that? So I know that there's a couple lines here. I'm now doing some observational drawing of my hand. I have lines. Now my thumb is off to the side, right? So I only see those lines and they're coming like right there. And then I have a fingernail, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to just kind of see where those lines go. And I want you to notice, right? They're all lined up together. And even right here, right across our back knuckle. And if you follow that over, look at that, connects with that line. And then I can say, okay, where does the bottom of my fingernail lie compared to this line? Okay, and that's where my first little bend goes, right? I have a ring on, right? So I could draw that if I wanted to. But what I want you to do is I really want you to just start looking at some of those organizational lines and some of those details of your hand. And you can go as simple as putting your hand down and drawing around it. And that's always just kind of a fun activity to do at the very basic level. Because what we're doing is we're just tracing something. Tracing is not cheating, people. Tracing helps us to have a solid shape so that we can add those lines and we can add those details. We can add the shading without worrying about the proportions, okay? So that is why I wanted to share with you this very simple, put your hand down, trace around it, and then you can start looking at, well, where are those lines? Where are those shadows? How do I take and make an edge to my hand? Okay, and you can come in here, and then this is when you get to be, you get to have some fun, and you get to just see all the little details in your hands and explore how to put those lines in. So I would like you to try that sometime this week, okay? I'll give everybody a few minutes to just put in some lines and put in some shadows if you'd like, and just take a look at the hand. You've got a perfect model that you can move any way you want, and it doesn't move if you don't want it to, right? It just stays put unless you decide to move it yourself. So that's always nice to have a model like that. It doesn't happen very often. You can always come in and get rid of all those extra lines if they're bothering you. That's why I say draw lightly always, right? You can go in and get rid of those lines, the ones you don't want. Notice I'm switching my pencil around whenever I want to do some shading. Okay, now I don't want you to feel like you're being rushed or anything, but what I want you to do is give you some more options you can do with your hand. This isn't just the only one. This is your most basic. So we're going to put this off to the side. Don't worry, you don't have to be done with it. I'm not done with mine. We're going to come back. You can come back and practice on this later. Again, you still have your hand, so you're not losing your model. So you're going to be fine. So you can either flip it around, or you can just get another piece of paper. I'm just going to flip mine around here, okay? And we're going to explore movement of the hand, right? And it's, again, with everything else, basic shape and observational drawing. And so you could sit here and you could put your hand in a different shape, and then you could just look at that line and add that line, and look at this line and add that line, and look at this line and where they connect, and what shape am I getting here, and what shape am I getting here. The hand, I think, is probably one of the pieces of our body that when we want to draw it, our brain takes over and says, oh, I know exactly how a hand looks. Well, because you see them every day, you work with them every day. And so when you hold it like this, your brain is trying to imagine, how does this wrap around? How does this wrap around? How do I get this proportion right when it's not that? right? If I have 2 fingers up, how do I get the proportions right? And you could sit here and you could explore that by just observational drawing, but I have something that I like to try. So I told everyone last week that if you had a glove, you could grab a glove, right? I put this on and my husband's like, oh, you have short fingers. Yes, I do. And that is okay. You can have short fingers. And if you found a glove that's not fitting you very well, or if you do not have a glove, no fear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it without a glove first. Actually, no, I'm going to do it with a glove first. That way you don't get confused because you can see through this glove. Okay, for those of you that do not have a glove, just watch what I do. I will give you some time in a minute. But those of you that have a glove, just put it on. And I'm going to get myself a marker. If you don't have one, see if you can find one, and I'll wait. And again, like I said, for those that don't have a glove, don't worry. I'll show you how to do this in just a minute with not a glove. Hopefully you have a marker. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start adding some contour lines. Okay. Now I know that my wrist is right here. So I'm going to draw a line there. This is a slow process. It does not have to be fast. I'm just putting myself a line right where my wrist is. Right? That's a good starting point because everybody has a wrist, right? It's where it bends, right? And if it moves, look at what my wrist just did, right? So right there on the wrist. And then we're going to do this lovely little line from the middle of our thumb, where we come right down the center of our palm. We're going to meet up right there in the middle. Like a fortune teller reading your lines, right? And if you'll notice, it also goes straight up. And it's going to go straight up the middle of that finger. And I have a thumb line, so I'm going to start right here on my thumb. I'm going to come down the middle of my thumb to where it starts to, like that joint is, and I'm going to go straight across. See what I did that? And then all of you have like this palm area, the top of your palm, right? And so I'm just going to draw that line, just right in the middle of my palm. I mean, not the palm, but like where your knuckles are. So opposite of your knuckles. I don't know if anybody of you ever used to cross monkey bars. I used to cross the monkey bars all the time. That shows me, I guess that shows you how old I am. They had monkey bars at school. And I would just get blisters right there on those pads. That's where that line goes. If you've ever had blisters from holding on to something like a monkey bar. Then from this line, the one that comes from your thumb down to the middle, I'm just going to go straight up that first finger. And starting on this line, I'm going to go straight up this finger. And then I'm sure you've guessed it, last finger, all the way up the middle. Look how fun those lines are. Now we're not quite done. What else do our hands do? Right? They move a little bit. So I'm going to do my first, right where you would wear a ring. I'm just going to draw those lines. Notice how they curve with my hand. That's why we're using the glove, right? Now, where's that next line going to go? Well, it's going to go right there where I bend my fingers. Make sure it's right where your fingers are bent, right? Because if you've drawn a line and that's not where your fingers bend, then you're going to be in trouble when you start to try to draw this. Don't forget the thumb, right where that thumb bends. Don't forget that one. And then, of course, our very last one right up here. If you're double jointed, you get that lovely little joint right at the top. Voila. Look what you got there. You've got a really fun contour hand. If you want to, you can do the back side as well. I'm not going to right now because we're going to just be doing the inside of our, well, we could, because if we switch our hand like this, maybe we want to know where those lines are, right? So we could just in the middle of our hand. And then we could do our knuckles right where we bend. And if you so desire, you could just say, okay, well, this right here is my nail, right? Beautiful green nails. Look like a witch or something like that. Don't forget your thumb. And where it bends. You can draw this line too. So I'll give everybody a minute to do that. It's kind of what you're looking at. Now, I'm going to take this off. You can save this. Put this with your art stuff, and then if you ever want to like practice your hand, just slip it back on. That's why I used a Sharpie. If you use a different kind of pen and it'll come off a little bit, it's okay. That's fine too. I'm just going to set that over there. Okay. For those of you that do not have a pen, a glove, and sometimes I think this is almost a little bit easier because then you're not dealing with a lot of the wrinkles, especially if it's a huge glove. I'm not going to do it in Sharpie marker though, unless you want to walk around with a Sharpie marker hand. I would use a pen. That'll come off a little bit easier, I promise. So we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to draw on ourselves. And you're like, oh my goodness, we're drawing on ourselves. Yes, we are. Now, you will see that I have all these beautiful lines on my hand already. That's my palm lines, and where that beautiful palm reader would follow up my lifeline. I don't even know what they do, but that's not the lines we're following. okay? We're gonna follow some contour lines here in our palm. So we're gonna take right between these, where we bend, and we're gonna come straight down to our wrist. And then I'm gonna go straight, whoop, straight up, the middle of my finger. Boop. I'm gonna take off my ring. It's a little bit easier, I think. And before I do any other lines, I'm gonna do my thumb line, okay? I'm gonna come down to right here in the middle, right where that nice thumb joint is, right into the middle of it. And I'm gonna come over. And that's when from this line, I can actually, yeah, from this line, you can go straight up. Now, if you don't have either of those, like a pen, or you could use a pencil. Look at that. I could use a pencil on myself. It's a little harder to read, but it's there. And all we're doing here is we're giving ourselves a template, just like the face, just like the body, just like anything that we've worked on, where we give ourselves a template so that when we're experimenting and practicing our drawing techniques, we have some lines to guide us. And that right there, I think, is probably, especially if you're a beginner, or maybe not even a beginner, but maybe you're a beginner at hands. You're very good at the face, or you're very good at drawing birds or seashells or landscapes. You could always get out and break out this template here, because then it helps you as you learn a new object to draw. Okay, so from here, let's not forget this line right across the pads that you would get your blisters on. Notice I don't have them right up there. Like, I can do these ones later. And I'm just drawing, and it's a lot easier without the glove, because you can really kind of see, obviously, where each of those marks are. Now, my mom always told me, don't draw on yourself. Did I listen to her? Of course not. I'm an artist. I always drew on myself. I always did. I used my hand all the time to draw pictures. I don't know why. I was, if I didn't have anything else around, I was drawing on something, and if it was my hand, so be it. So, but look how helpful that is, right? Isn't that pretty cool? I love that. I love that I now have a way to look at the lines and give myself a way to practice drawing my hand in a way that I can interpret. Okay, so I'm not quite done. I can flip over to the other side, and I can go straight up the middle. Hopefully nobody's doing this in Sharpie, and if you are, have fun with that. You can tell people if you go out, hey, look, we did an art class today. Maybe this is a good time to draw with Sharpie. Nobody's really leaving the house, right? So you can have a Sharpie hand for a couple days. Oh, beautiful. Okay, now for the fun part. Why did I make you draw on your hand? Well, of course, I want you to be able to have fun with it. So we're going, you can put the glove back on. I'm going to just use my hand. But now's the time where you get to, however you do it, hold your hand in a way that that maybe you could draw it, right? Maybe, and you just explore that, right? And I would say maybe start with something simple. So maybe just like a hand over to the side and a couple fingers like that. So I'm going to put my hand, and sometimes it's easier if you have something for it to be on, right? And this is where I'm no longer tracing. I'm actually looking at lines. I'm looking at shapes. I'm looking at where the shapes intersect and where the lines intersect. Observational drawing, which I think is like key to anything when we draw, unless of course it's from memory, and my memory is not that good. I always need some inspirational piece. This is where I'm going to say, okay, you know what? This shape right here, I can do. Okay. Now, I'm going to put my hand here because you know what I need? I need a little bit of stability. I need this hand to hold this paper. That's just how it is, right? And that's okay. So if it needs to be a little closer, it can be a little closer. I'm going to take this shape and I'm going to put it here on this paper. Notice how that line comes this way, right? So making sure that this line lines up here. It's not going to be a straight exact line. It's going to have a little bit of movement. And this right here has a little bit of curve to it, right? And then this line right here comes right up here. And then I'm just going to finish off that shape right here. So if this line is this line, then where do I put that line, right? I'm going to put that line somewhere in here, right? And I'm going to notice where this line goes, my middle line, right? And it comes up like this, and it goes up like that. Notice I'm just doing shapes and lines. I'm taking it apart like a puzzle piece, okay? A puzzle piece. Now I've got this thumb that's sticking out here, right? And so I have to put that somewhere. Like there's a line that comes up here and it's here somewhere, and I'm just gonna swing that out. But I have to make sure, right, that I don't go crazy. Does it go clear out to here? Well, this is not a teapot. This is my thumb, right? So I'm looking at where this thumb kind of comes around. So if I were to come around, where does it lie, right? I'm looking at all those lines, right? And if this line comes up around here, right? And then here is a line that comes, where does that line? This line comes here, right? And that's actually hidden by some of that thumb, right? So I'm looking and I'm trying to observe, where does this line go? And if I didn't like that, well, guess what? I can erase it, right? Of course, I'm drawing lightly, so I can. Okay. And then there's a line that goes up here. I'm following this line now. And look at where that line goes, and it kind of just goes 1, 2, 3. And then that edge comes like right here. Remember, this is the middle of that finger, right? So that finger's going to come here somewhere. And then here's that middle line. I think I've moved my hand a little bit. So again, that's just my hand was a little bit more open when I did this. So I am, of course, trying to draw this using a picture that's like 2 feet away from me over there because I'm trying to draw what you guys see. And so my hand keeps moving a little bit. So what I want you to do is not really look up at the camera as much. I really want you to just look at your own hand and see what you can come up with, drawing carefully those lines. Does that make sense? So you're not drawing my hand. I want you to draw your hand. And observational drawing isn't looking up at the computer screen. It's going to be looking at your hand and figuring out what the shapes are and where the lines intersect on your own hand. Okay. And this is you telling your brain, I'm not listening to you. I am drawing my own hand based on these lines. Because it's very easy for our brain to say, oh, I know how to draw a hand. So I'm going to let you work on that for just a minute. If you put your hand so that some of these are down, just take a look and see where those lines intersect. I want you to just explore that for just a minute. Okay. Thinking about what we've talked about. Are your lines going the directions they need? Are you drawing slightly? Are you creating basic shapes and putting them together? Ask yourselves these questions as you draw. Be methodical about it. And that's good to do when you start a new project. Be methodical, think about it, and then as you do more, you go faster. And that's okay. This can be slow. This can be a slow process at the beginning. And then as you do more of these, you get faster at them. Maybe you don't have to remind yourself to write slowly anymore. Maybe you don't have to remind yourself to do basic shapes anymore. I think it's kind of like baking cookies. Like I've made chocolate chip cookies forever now, so I don't even have to look at the recipe anymore, right? I know that I need a butter. I know that I need half a cup of brown sugar, half a cup of white sugar, and then I just start putting them into a bowl. And that's just because I've done it so many times. Okay. I once was doing this project in one of my art classes, senior center, and I had them draw their own hands. And I had one lady, she went home and worked on it, and she worked on it in class, and then she took it home with her, and she looked at the picture, and she's like, I looked at that picture and I thought, that doesn't look like my hand. And then I started measuring my hand, and you know what? That was my hand. So, and that was her brain just saying, hey, is that how it looks? And I think that that's why hands can be tricky, is because they move all sorts of different ways. And we lose some lines when we close it up our fist, right? We lose some of those lines. And so we're like, well, how does that all fit together? So. How are you feeling about this hand project? I know I'm not really interjecting much here, and it's because I want you to focus a lot on your own hand. Everybody's position where they held it was a little different, and so I wanted you to really focus on your own contour lines and your own setup of those on a piece of paper. But once you get your lines down, and once you get your shape down, and you feel comfortable with that, and maybe it looks a little out of, maybe you think, oh, I don't know if that looks good. And you can come in with your pencil and you can just measure. Can you say, okay, is that in proportion to my hand here? Is that, you can do those kinds of things where you can measure and make sure that everything is lined up. You can check your lines. You can say, okay, where does this line go and where does this line go? Is this line far enough over, right? So you can recheck yourself, right? And then once you get your lines down, you can erase them. And this is where your shading comes in and you get rid of your edges. So I really want you to continue working on this. I'll give you about 5 more minutes and then I'm going to do a quick little hand on bodies, smaller kind of versions of hands. And then I'm going to open it to if anybody wants to share, if they did, because I guess it's 2:05. So at about 2:20, if anybody wants to share, they can. So I'll give you about 5 more minutes on this hand drawing. And I really want you to pay attention to all those things we've talked about and really get comfortable with these lines. there's any lines that are getting in your way and frustrating you, well then go right ahead and erase them. I do that. They think, oh, there's too many lines and they're bugging me. Go ahead and just erase them. Sometimes I shade with my contour lines. I know I have some bumps right in here, so when I shade it, I kind of just give those bumps some, you know, some movement with my shading. And you can always come back in and give yourself highlights if you by just erasing some stuff, right? But I'm just trying to give myself, you know, that. Sometimes a quick, this is pretty quick. I mean, we've done this in about maybe not even a half an hour, right? Can be very confident building. What's the word I'm trying to use there? Gratifying to think, oh, look at that. I can draw my hand in just, you know, some time here, not very much time. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but that looks like a hand to me, right? And it's my hand, and I'm just kind of quickly throwing in some shading there by switching my pencil around and getting some shades in there. And again, you can go nice and slow. This doesn't have to be a fast process, right? Go at your own pace. It's your own hand. It's your own method. I'm just trying to give you some, right? But sometimes when you do it a little bit quicker and you just kind of step back and think, oh my gosh, that looks like a hand. That's kind of fun to do, isn't it? And it came alive as soon as I got rid of those lines and made them edges. Does that make sense? Get rid of some of these edges by just shading a little bit. I'm looking at my light source. Okay, I'm going to give everybody 3 more minutes on this. And then I'm going to share with you some other little things. Okay, I'm going to put this off to the side. I've got my hands here. Now, those of you that were working on the body, remember we looked at this one last week? And we have some hands here. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to just show you what you can do when you're using something like this, right? You could use a pencil, you could go over it lightly with the pencil, you could make a photocopy of something, and I like to give it some basic shapes as well, right? And notice that most of the hands can be taken and put into very, very simple shapes. And then all that you would do in here is just do some shading, and voila, you've got fingers. Okay, so you've got the end of a, so just to kind of give you, you've got your arm here, right? It comes up. Kind of the basic shape of a hand is you've got like that, and then you've got the fingers, and then the thumb. Okay, and you can do it along those kind of planes, and her fingers are bent in and her thumb is hidden, so you wouldn't even need this right here. And then you could get rid of this line here and just add your shading in there where you see it for the fingers. Okay, let me give you another example of that. These are small, I apologize, but so you've got a hand right here, right? And there we go. And so you notice that, let me just draw this. So I noticed that from the wrist, it comes down, and then basic shapes. Ah, there we go. You see that? So when you are doing a human form and you want to do the hands, you can hide the hands. I love this idea, right? Just hide those hands and nobody has to see them. But if you can, share those hands, draw that hand there, and you can use it very simply by just kind of looking at it and giving yourself those contour lines on a smaller scale. And then you have a hand, and it becomes, again, you give it a template, and it becomes a very easy subject as you practice on how a hand looks. So I want you to try those. I want you to kind of get the feel of what a hand might look like. And then if you're so inclined to draw something, have some fun with the hands and how the hands look. Okay, and that's, again, very observational. You're gonna observe it, you look, you draw, you look, you draw. Okay, wow. We have done a lot these last 5 weeks, and I really want to thank everyone for joining me. I hope you learned some techniques that will help you continue to draw and be excited about drawing. You don't have to enjoy drawing the human figure, but you've put pencil to paper, and I've given you some ways to do that, and you don't have to do that ever again if you don't want to, but you've hopefully learned something from that. How to separate things out, how to use proportions and measure and look and draw and look and draw. I really have enjoyed this time with you. I wish it was in person. I really miss being in a classroom, but this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for all of you for joining me and for sharing. Before we stop the recording, if anybody wants to share, I am going to do another class. So I'm going to do another series, and that series will be in July. So write this down somewhere. And it will be Wednesdays in July. Not the first Wednesday, because that's the 1st of July. And so it's close to the holiday, so we'll give everybody a break that week. But July 8th and 15th, 22nd, and 29th of July, we are going to be doing another series. So that's 4 in the series. And it will be a different time. I work in the mornings. I decorate cakes. That's always fun, right? I lost my teaching jobs, and so I thought I need to go do something. So now I decorate cakes at a bakery, and it's a lot of fun. But that's usually in the morning. So we're going to start the classes at 3:30 every Wednesday, and they'll go until 5. So you'll still get your hour and a half, and they will be recorded. So if you need to go back and look at some things, you can always comment. And but this series is going to be watercolor. I'm very excited about watercolor. The very first thing that I started doing was drawing. When I started doing art, I started drawing. And my second medium that I really fell in love with was the watercolor. I remember I was in 7th grade and I got to explore watercolor in my art class for the first time, and I painted a barn, and I just absolutely loved it. And my mom was wonderful. She went and she got it framed, and I gave it to my grandmother for her birthday. And that's when I truly just fell in love with watercolor. And watercolor can be intricate and scary for some, but it isn't. It's very beautiful, easy, fun, simple medium. And guess what? It's a jump off from drawing, because we'll draw something and then we're just going to add, in fact, our shadows and our colors with a little bit of watercolor. Look for registration on that. It should be coming soon. And with that, I will have them post a couple of videos. And those videos are going to be me exploring Hobby Lobby and or Michael's to tell you what to get. Okay. This drawing one has been a lot easier simply because it's been just pencil and paper. So this one you do have to put some effort into it by getting yourself a good brush and also by getting some good paper and some watercolor. So I hope that you can join me in that. I will just video where I'm at in Target, or not Target, but Michael's, and say, here's the aisle that has the brushes, and this is the brush that you should get, and this is how much it usually costs, and you can use your 40% off coupon. And I'll give you prices, and I'll give you directions, because I really think that getting yourself decent brush and decent paper makes all the difference. Because if you've ever watercolored before and you think, oh my gosh, that didn't turn out right, it's probably because you weren't using the right tools. So look for that registration. It will have the right tools, a couple videos on where you can find those tools, how much it costs, so you can really weigh that out if it's something that you want to pursue. And we're going to be doing things that people have requested. We're going to be doing flowers. We'll be doing a bird. We will be doing a landscape. And I'm not sure what we're going to do on the fourth one, but those are the ones that people typically want to do with watercolor. Maybe a water scene or something like that. So those are some things to look forward to, and I will see you back here in July, and we are going to do some beautiful watercolors. You guys have been amazing. So we're going to stop recording now.